Welcome, everybody. This week's episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about the rise of polarizing figures. More specifically, we're going to look at the role models of young men. My name is Daniel. I'm the psychology student bringing you his 2 cents from his lectures, his textbooks, his conversations, and what's going on in the current life events. Let's talk about young men. Let's talk about role models. How is it that a kickboxer from Romania could have this much popularity in this short period of time? How is it that you can have a psychologist from Canada, Alberta to be specific, who has such an enormous impact on people from around the world? Or a cage fighting commentator has the biggest podcast in the world. How does that happen? How do these people rise to fame? Well, I'll tell you what happens. Whenever we push one way too much, it's natural that we're going to get an increase from the other side. And what the main focus of this talk is going to be about is looking at not only psychology, but sociology, looking at the combination of the two and how what we do societally, what we talk about from the government down, the mainstream media, and how that influences people to go out of their way and do things independently. I'll give you a perfect example. When you start changing what masculinity means, so you have men who now go out and let's say they wear dresses and they paint their nails and they start to look differently from what the norm is. It's only natural that you're going to have another side push back. And they're going to double down on the stereotypical aspects of what makes a man a man. You're good with your hands, you're a mechanic, you got to be good at some sort of trade, you got to like martial arts and self-defense, you got to be into alcohol. So it's always natural when we push one way, something else comes out. I've talked about this a long time ago in terms of the basic premise for a superhero movie, right? What is a superhero movie? There's villains that the cops can't deal with. So the problem gives rise to a solution. The solution is, some guy takes it upon himself to carry the burdens of society and he becomes a superhero, right? Or vice versa. There's a villain that sees the superhero doing really well and he wants to get rid of the superhero so they have more free space to do what they want to do. Now, one thing that we notice with a lot of these male role models, if you will, these people who are making videos and primarily their videos are male, is people are saying they are a bad influence. The advice that they're giving, the impact that they're having is not good, it is harmful. And they might throw out a variety of terms such as giving advice that is sexist or homophobic or that harms other people in some shape or form. And the question becomes this: why are they so popular? See, the initial reaction that people have when they look at these male role models is we have to deplatform them. We have to cancel them. We got to take away, we got to ban them from all these social media sites. Here's the problem. When you have an individual who goes up there and he starts saying a bunch of these things and he gets extremely popular and then you ban him, what have you just done? You've just taken away their spokesperson. Tomorrow, someone else will come up, they'll say similar things and that crowd will gravitate towards them. So what do? Well, Daniel, you just keep banning everybody who says anything like that because we don't accept that stuff. Let me ask you something. If you're a racist, and if I tell you, look, you're not allowed to say anything racist, does that make you not racist anymore? Or do you just think those thoughts? And then when you go out with your friends, in your own corner, in your own social group, you repeat those words. We're in this weird place where it's, if I don't see it, then it doesn't exist. If I don't allow people to talk about sexism or sexist things on Instagram, if I ban you, then you'll stop talking about it. No, they won't. They'll just go to another platform and another platform. So what you do when you ban someone from a platform, now we're saying, look guys, if you want to listen to me, come to my website and hear it from me directly. So the audience goes elsewhere. When people become focused with taking apart the leader, my focus is let's take a step back and recognize, how did we get here? Look, you want to figure out people's opinions? There's 2 ways to go about it. One, you take a microphone and you go to 100 people and you say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you take a microphone, you give it to one person, you put them on stage and you let them talk about a variety of things: gender, sex, education, goals, beliefs, and then you watch the audience. And if they gravitate towards them, and if they walk over to them, and if they start applauding, and if they start whistling and they're cheering, you just figured out what everybody thinks. If you remember one thing from this episode, let it be this: social media, in this context, social media is a reflection of our society. When you have an individual who spews a very materialistic beliefs. If you want to be successful, you got to have this many cars, this many homes, and this many girlfriends. And he's got 4 million followers. You don't need 4 million people to individually come out and give you their opinion. But that one person, metaphorically, having that microphone and seeing all those people cheering makes you go, holy smokes, this view is popular. What this guy is saying is resonating with all of you. And if I get rid of this guy on stage, another person's going to come up. So what we recognize is when we have these independent people who get really popular through different apps, such as YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, it's a reflection, it's a mirror of what is going on in society. When you have stand-up comics come out and they joke about a lot of the things that we're going through right now, and you have people in your audience laugh and clap, why? Because there's elements of truth in that. There's elements of being able to relate and go, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I guess I've never really put those words together. I thought I was the only one who thought that way. So when you see that person saying it, guess what? It makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel stronger. It makes you feel less lonely. It makes you feel more confident in your views, and it makes you feel more assertive. And you're like, I want to listen to that guy because that guy's on my team. Many, many years ago, you have a gentleman by the name of Adolf Hitler, gets in front of the German audience, in front of the German public. This is right after the lost World War I. Germany is doing terribly, both from a confidence place and financially. They basically got screwed over in this agreement where they have to pay a crazy amount of money to all the countries that they bombed and that they attacked. Not to mention they basically don't have a military at all. Like the budget was completely cut. And it was monitored by the Allies to make sure that didn't happen. Adolf goes up on stage. And this happens over a long period of time. But eventually, the theme is this. I understand you. You are angry. You have a right to be angry. I'm angry too. We do not deserve this. We are better than this. This is unacceptable. And I'm not going to sit around. Who's with me? Now, I'm paraphrasing, you get that. But what did I just do? And it's really important to note that Hitler, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, in the First World War, he was actually a soldier. He was born in Austria. He was actually a soldier. He was out there in the trenches. So right there, you come out of this idea of this guy who's bourgeoisie, this rich guy talking to the common folk. No. I went to war just like you did. I saw people die around me just like you did. I was literally there. And if you look at his videos, a lot of the time when he's in front of people, well done to him, which sounds strange to say out loud, he's wearing a soldier's uniform, which says what? I'm one of you. I'm one of the common folk. So he starts talking, and look, there's this idea that says, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't really matter how you say it. It's about how you make people feel. And when the people of Germany at that point were feeling disappointed and angry and frustrated, and their economy is in the dumpster, and this guy makes them feel like they have nothing to be ashamed of. And he makes, look, right or wrong, morally, just put that to the side for a second. But in terms of convincing an audience that I have your back, because I make you feel empowered, and I say things that resonate with you. I say the things out loud that you wish you could say, things that you think. And you go, I like this guy. Why? Because I see a little bit of me in him. So if I'm cheering for him, I believe that he's cheering for me. It's a mutual partnership. I will support this guy. So when you have a kickboxer from Romania, when you have a psychologist from Alberta coming out and sharing their opinions, there's something that these guys are saying that resonates with a wide variety of people. Like it's not just 5, 10, like millions upon millions of people where they go, you're 100% right. When the whole world tells you, your opinion doesn't matter and maybe you're perfect the way you are, you shouldn't start to get better. Whatever the narrative is that a person has been taught, that a young man has been told, then you hear these people and they start saying the opposite. Look, there's nothing wrong with being who you are. Do you have privileges? Absolutely, but other people do too. You shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't have to apologize. You should strive to be your best. Don't ever take yourself for granted. And guess what happens? When the whole world has one narrative, and then there's this one person over here who's saying the opposite. You're better than you think you are. You shouldn't feel guilty. Whatever, as long as it's the opposite to the mainstream narrative, those people that weren't feeling heard, Now they've got a voice. Because that person has just become, whether they know it or not, a voice of the voiceless. If I have an opinion, and if I look at the media or anyone else that I'm paying attention to, and no one's sharing that opinion, well, I feel like no one cares about what I have to think. No one cares about my beliefs or my takes on society. So it distances me. That's why you have so many people who don't vote, because they go, look, none of these guys speak to me. And then you have a person come out and they start saying the things that you think, and you go, holy smokes, I resonate with this character. I support, I'm going to buy his merchandise and pay for his subscription services and whatever. Because he resonated with me. Now the question becomes, are these role models good or bad? Well, I would argue there's subjectivity to a degree. You can focus on what you want to focus on. If you think he's the best person in the world, you're going to have confirmation bias, and you're only going to see the things that align with your view, and vice versa. If you think they're a terrible person, you're going to gloss over any of the advice that might be objectively good, and you're going to focus in on the stuff that might be extreme, that might not be so good. I gave this example a long time ago. I'm sitting in class and my prof goes, look, there's an individual who drinks alcohol every night, like hard liquor every night. Do they have an alcohol problem? To which the majority of the class nods their head. They go, yeah, absolutely. She goes, how do you know he has an alcohol problem? And the class goes, well, he's drinking hard liquor every single night. And she goes, why is he drinking liquor every single night? I go, we don't know. She says, so without you knowing that, how do you know if alcohol is the root problem, like he's doing it just because he likes doing it, or he's drinking it for a particular reason? Does he drink alcohol in the sense of he's running towards it, or is he drinking alcohol in the sense of he's running away from something? And those are totally different. Those are totally different things. So you sit there and maybe you find out in the story, this guy was in a bad car accident, and in this car accident, his wife and his child passed away. And then he drinks to take away the pain. So now what that tells us is alcohol is not the problem. Alcohol is the self-chosen solution to the problem. The problem is the feelings that this gentleman has about the event that occurred in his past. So what he does to numb those feelings is he reaches for the alcohol. And if you were to look at a strength-based approach in terms of counseling, your perspective is different. Alcohol isn't a problem, it's a symptom of it. You're reaching for alcohol because it's helping you deal with the pain. And in that sense, you're doing a very logical thing. And if we go in there, before doing any of that thought process, and we say alcohol is the problem, and we remove drinking from his life, you've just taken out the only thing that was numbing the pain. All of a sudden, 3 weeks later, you come back as a heroin addict. Huh, that's weird. I don't understand. Maybe alcohol wasn't the problem to begin with. So my worry is if we look at these individuals and we say, look, these people, they're brainwashing young men and women. They're bad. They're indoctrinating them. We got to remove them. Are there people who watch them who are very impressionable and young and get convinced and are on the fence and get tilted another way? Without a doubt. But I strongly believe that the large amount of people are set in their ways of thinking. And they go out looking for those people. Like, it's not like everyone gets brainwashed. They go and they find these people on purpose. So the moment you remove them, you deplatform, you cancel them, there's going to be another one and another one. And if we deplatform them, in my mind, that's no different than taking alcohol away from the guy and saying, well, problem solved. What is the problem exactly? Why are so many young men looking towards these people for their role models? Why? What are they saying that society has failed to say? Oh, well, Daniel, they shouldn't listen to them because they talk about bad things. They should have positive role models. Like who? Think about some positive male role models right now. Who is that exactly? And you might say, oh, well, look, that could be like a dad, a grandfather, an uncle. Okay, but think out there. Not personally, like know personally, but know of. Out there who's constantly putting out videos and content to be a good role model for young men out there. Who is that exactly? Is it guys like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Because you're right, physically, would you not say that they reinforce unhealthy body standards, that everybody has to look jacked, and we're supposed to believe he looks like that naturally, as if he just eats chicken breast and broccoli to look like that? As if he doesn't have a personal trainer or nutritionist and he's not getting paid to work out? Is that the role model? So who else do young people turn to? In one sense, you say, look, we want to hear what you have to say. We want you to open up. We want us to tell you about the things that you're disgruntled about. And then when men do that, they're told to be quiet. They're said that your opinion doesn't matter. Because you're a man X, or because the color of your skin is this, off to the trenches with you. What we do is when we alienate people, when we push them away, they become susceptible to following role models that might not be 100% healthy or good for them. But they're like, look, no one else is even acknowledging my existence. At least this guy is talking about 50% of the things that I'm thinking about. Let me listen to him. Let me give him a chance. And then when those guys get deplatformed, the first thought to a young man's mind is go, I can't say these things at work or at school because people will judge me. So I'll follow him. And now he's deplatformed. I'm going to support him even more because me and him are in the same boat. So this conversation isn't, look, those role models that I mentioned are good or they're bad. Put that to the side for a second because I have my own biases and I have my own thoughts on them. I don't want them to influence yours. If there's one thing that I've always strived for from the beginning of the creation of this podcast in 2019 is whatever information I give you or anyone else gives you, I do not want you to hold it blindly. I want you to evaluate it. Think about it. Critically think about it before you just, oh, well, Daniel said this, so I'm literally going to repeat verbatim what he said to a conversation with a friend. Don't accept any ideas just like that. And don't disagree with them either. Really think about them for yourself. You should have your own views on different individuals that are role models for men or for women, but it's really important to understand where these people come from. And not only is it okay to have those models, it's necessary. Like it's natural that when we go one way, they represent this group of people that felt like they were voiceless. I felt the exact same thing when Donald Trump won the election. When someone like that wins, my thought isn't, wow, how can someone like Donald win? My first thought was, whoa, there's something going on in America. There are some issues. There's something that isn't being talked about. People don't feel heard. And this guy, whatever it was, whatever he said, is clicking with people. So we can learn more about how the American people think. So whenever you look at role models, whenever you see anybody on any social media platform, look how many followers they have. And it'll give you a rough estimate of how many people agree with that mindset or like that mindset or have those beliefs themselves. And whenever you're in a position where you're thinking about role models, think about the people who you listen to, whose advice you value. It might be in person, family members, friends. It might be online. Think about why they rose to prominence. Like, of course they did. Of course. When someone says, look, there's this many genders, it's only natural someone's going to say the opposite. If someone says the best color is blue and if you think anything else, you're crazy, of course someone's going to talk about the color red. It's only natural. And I hope what we can recognize as a society is we can look at these individuals and we can take a step back and go, what are they saying exactly? And if it's really harmful stuff, like if it's sexist, if it's homophobic, if it's inciting violence, inciting abuse and things of that nature, we got to take a step back and go, look, where does this come from? If there are so many people that resonate and clap when the guy talks about harmful things, we got to sit back and go, where are we failing these people? Why don't they have other role models? How about in terms of education? Where is the gap that we are failing these young men so that they go towards the others? Or vice versa. Maybe they're giving advice. That's amazing. That's incredible. And it resonates with them. And then you're sitting back and look, you want to sit back and say, oh, that's just another self-help person. My friends, there's a lot of self-help, self-improvement coaches, life coaches out there. But to rise to prominence, to rise to such popularity in such short span of time is damn near unheard of. And if this idea of, well, take responsibility for your life, well, that's cliche. Make your bed. Yeah, wow, that's super profound. Well, instead of ridiculing it and making fun of the simplicity of the arguments, how about you sit back and realize, if it's so cliche, why is this man coming out and talking about taking responsibility, changing the lives of millions? If you were right, and if it was as cliche and as generic as you thought it was, there's no chance in hell it would have resonated with so many people. This idea of, oh, well, what generic advice? Yeah, work on your muscles, work on your finances, and work on your social skills. Pfft, everybody knows that. Really? Really? So why are people with those podcasts blowing up like that? Why? Because there's a need for it. The market will tell you exactly what it needs. And I talked to a friend of mine about quality and quantity a long time ago. I said, look, be careful. Quantity is objective. 1 is 1, 3 is 3. Quality is subjective. I think this painting is a 10 out of 10. You might give it a 7 out of 10. And it's hard to pinpoint an exact number. Is my 8 out of 10 the same as your 8 out of 10? What are you basing it off of? What am I basing it off of? So when we look at these people, when we look at these role models, we have to understand, where did this come from? Why do so many people think like this? And what does society need? If there is a problem, there will always be a solution. Business 101. If you're standing outside and you're like, man, it's really hot, they should have more lemonade stands around here. Next week, you and your cousin have a lemonade stand, you're charging $3 for a glass. There was a problem, you offered a solution. So what these guys are doing is the exact same thing. There is a problem in society that no one's talking about, specifically to young men, that nobody even bats an eye towards, whether it's the loneliness, whether it's the suicide ideation, whether it's the mental health problems, whether it's the crazy stress of the responsibility. And people don't talk about it. So all of a sudden, when this male figure comes along and starts saying these things out loud, you're surprised why it resonates with millions of young people? You got to take a look in the mirror and go, what are they providing, these young men, that society is failing to provide? And if we take them away, are we solving the problem, or is someone else just going to come take their place? What does this tell us about what we need to do in terms of the mainstream media, in terms of our educational system, in terms of the government, in terms of our laws, to address these issues, or at the very least, acknowledge them, and if we believe they are false, provide counter arguments in front of the public. If a gentleman's on stage, this is the last thing I'll say, and he's saying a bunch of things on a microphone, if I agree with him, God bless him. If I don't agree with him, I'm not going to tackle him and get him off the stage. I'm going to wait till he's finished. I'll go up on stage and I'll provide counter arguments. And in the eyes of the people, once they have both arguments, they will decide. Because what I do is I emphasize autonomy. I emphasize critical thinking. I don't force you to. If I tackle the guy off the stage, I'm saying, look, his way's wrong, you have to follow me. Right? But if I present my article, my views or my advice alongside theirs, now you have an option. You're an autonomous individual who can critically think. And I would encourage you to look at both sides and make your own decision. Because maybe instead of ridiculing those people and making fun of them, or just throwing something towards their way like, oh, they're just haters, or they're just bums, or they're losers, they're talking about something very real. And millions of people agree with them. And I promise you, to just kind of wiping your shoulders and going, yeah, that's nonsense, you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're not doing those people any favors. It's not about cancellation. It's about education and making the world a better place. And the first thing that we do is we listen. We really listen. And we take a look at the reflection that social media provides us of our society. Thank you very much for listening, folks. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was interesting, mixed in some sociology amongst some psychology today. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. What are your thoughts? Let me know what you think. Take care.